let's just say the enemy is traveling here, right? So they're on the payload, they're traveling here. So I want to do a sneaky barrage attack that's right on top of them where they don't see me. So I'm gonna hide here. So I'm gonna hide here. Maybe my teammate calls that they are along the alley. So what I'm gonna do is just walk forward, E shift, barrage. Okay. Okay, so welcome to another video. In this video, I'll be talking about Pharah. We'll just adjust my mic a bit. Pharah about and how some of her general tech. I've been playing. I did play Pharah for quite a few seasons in the early competitive seasons, so I think I got up to plat, like just one tricking Pharah most of my games. I was playing mostly Pharah, Soldier, and Zarya. Okay, so first and foremost about Pharah is her flight ability. So what you want to do to get the maximum height is first you gotta understand there's this thing called rocket jump, which is similar to a Junkrat's concussive jump, except that it does damage to yourself. You just aim it, flick your mouse cursor to the floor, and at a point where you hit the rocket, you hit jump as well. So you can see I flew up quite far. So you gotta combine this with the left shift because normally when you do a left shift, you will boost up. So just combine this with, that means a rocket jump and then a left shift. So let's do a rocket jump, left shift. So this is as far as we can get in one burst, right? Okay, let's compare this with just doing a left shift. Let's do a left shift. Okay, so we reach about this point, but let's combine this with a rocket jump and left shift. Okay, so we reach about the third window. So we have gone about one window higher. So with a rocket jump and left shift, we reach third window. Without the rocket jump, we only reach about the second window, which is about here. Yep. So this is just with the left shift, and we do it with the rocket jump, we can reach third window. So it's about maybe one level higher than what you could have gotten with just the left shift alone. So that's why you see a lot of professional or high-level Pharah players will always do a rocket jump and left shift, but they usually get heals and pockets from their Mercy or their main healer. So it's okay to take that small amount of damage because you just get call for heals quickly and you get a full health pretty quickly. So the other thing so that's about getting the maximum height. So the other thing about rocket jump left shift, the maximum height, other thing is Pharah is that if you want to stay in the air to attack, it is not a good idea to stay in the open like this. Because if you're looking at it from a hit scan player point of view, that means if I see the Pharah like flying right in the middle of that space there, they're gonna make a pretty easy target. So if the hit scan player is decent, let's say a Widowmaker, a McCree, or an Ashe with decent aim, they can just headshot you. Or even if they can't headshot you, they can just like body shot you 2 to 3 times, and they could either kill you straight out or can bring you to really low health so that another of their teammates could follow up and frag you out of the air. So good Pharah players, what they do is that they will try to hug the walls or the top of buildings. For example, this is a good place to hug. You can hug this top of building and spam damage below, right? So I'm gonna be playing really sneaky, hugging up the top of the buildings here. So from the enemy perspective, all they see is like the Pharah just peeking, like peek. They just see like a little bit of Pharah and then the Pharah disappears. A little bit of Pharah, the Pharah disappears. So you want to like peek over high surfaces like the top of buildings or the side of walls. For example, if let's say I use this side of the building as for me to peek, so my enemies are at the bridge, so I'm just gonna peek, shoot at the bridge, peek, shoot at the bridge. So if I'm low on jetpack, I'll just drop, recharge my jetpack. So peek, and then just keep disappearing from their point of view. So it frustrates the hit scan player. The hit scan player is like, I want to hit the Pharah, she's gone. I want to hit the Pharah, she's gone. Right? So this is how you can use, I generally call this natural cover, but probably you just use buildings as cover. So using the buildings as cover for your Pharah. And this also protects your Mercy as well, because if your Mercy is pocketing you, the Mercy can just hover around either on the ground or on the top of you, still with the cover of the building. So she's safe from enemy Widowmakers, McCree's, and Ashe, and Soldier 76. So that's about using cover. And what's next is, okay, attacking. As a Pharah, it's very similar to a Junkrat, whereby you just want to spam damage down on choke point. Because just like how Junkrats would want to play, because the projectile takes a bit of time to travel to hit the target, they can't aim like hit scan player. So you just have to spam in the general direction of the target or predict where the target is gonna go to in order to land their shots. So same thing for Pharah. Let's say in this case the choke point is here. So I just want to keep spamming rockets on this bridge. So I want to like peek, spam rockets at the bridge, peek, spam rockets at the bridge. So certain times when you're lucky, if the opponent isn't careful, they will walk into the rockets and they will take damage. If they're really unlucky, they will just die straight away, or at least if they don't die, when they take damage, it gives you out charge. So it's always good to find a choke point as Pharah and just spam rockets into it. So you don't have to like really worry about aiming, like really hard aiming with your rocket shots. If you're doing in a 1v1, let's say in the air, on the ground, same thing, just like a Junkrat, is you want to predict where the enemy will go to. So let's say the enemy healers and the team is moving on this direction. So I know that they're going to move forward, so I just aim a little bit. So let's say if the enemy is around here, I just want to aim like a little bit before them, because I'm going to predict that they're going to walk forward. So hopefully they'll walk into my shots. So if they are moving back, I just want to aim a little bit behind them. Like let's say they're here, they're moving back, I want to aim a little bit behind them so that hopefully my rockets will land exactly where they're walking to. Okay, so that's what we call leading your shots. So this same theory works for Junkrat, and it works for Hanzo, and it works for Mei as well. All projectile heroes, even for Echo. Echo also has projectile hits. Same for Zenyatta's, same for any projectile heroes like Genji and so on, leading your shots. And what else? Okay, the next up would be Concussion, using the Concussion, I think the E, I just call it the E, or the Concussion Jump. So the Concussion Jump is really useful for Pharah. It gives you a mobility option. So a simple way to use it would be to concussion, okay, let me call it concuss for short. So I want to concuss against a wall so that I can fly in the opposite direction of the concuss, and I can do an ultimate or rocket shot. Most of the time it's for ultimate. So let's say I'm flying here. Let's say the enemy team is here. So I want to be sneaky, I want to fly on top of them, and I want to barrage them. So what I can do is use here, boost, and go. So it gives me a little bit of a boost off the wall. So in terms of the, if the enemy is watching here, they will see me disappear from view. All of a sudden I'll pop up here and I'll barrage. And another way you can do that will be sometimes I use this very often out of spawn, is that you can use the concussion blast on the ground to push yourself forward. So it's almost like a rocket jump that goes forward. So if you aim down and you do a concussion jump, you will travel in the same spot, so you don't really move too much. So what you want to do is walk forward and concussion blast, you'll move forward. So remember, walk forward, E, you will fly forward. So you can combine this with a left shift. So let's say I want to walk forward, blast, and left shift. So you see that I have jumped up from there to here. So it's like an accelerated, it's like if you look at it from third person perspective, it will be like a diagonal jump. So that your Pharah will go from here straight to there. So I'll do it again. Walk forward, E, left shift. Then you'll reach here in a pretty quick speed. So the same thing, this is really useful for barrages. So let's just say the enemy is traveling here, right? So they are on the payload, they're traveling here. So I want to do a sneaky barrage attack that's right on top of them where they don't see me. So I'm gonna hide here. So I'm gonna hide here. Maybe my teammate calls that they are along the alley. So what I'm gonna do is just walk forward, E, shift, barrage. Right? So from the enemy's perspective, they'll be like, they won't even hear you because you're on the ground. So there's no jetpack sounds for them to track you. Because when you do fly in the air, there's this hovering sound, like the jetpack sound. there's this kind of like jetpack sound. So they can actually track you from via the sounds of that. But if you're on the ground and if you're not even walking, there's no footsteps, so they can't really know where that you're exactly there. Then all of a sudden you're just gonna appear behind a bend and you're gonna rain barrage down them. Right? So there's one way to use the, I call this the concussion, just call it a concussion jump for, or a concussion boost, or whatever you want to call it. So you just walk forward, E, left shift, and barrage. Okay, so that's really good for surprise attacks when using an ultimate, which is pretty important for Pharah because you become so isolated in the air, you become a really easy target. So you want to be as sneaky with your ultimates as possible. Similar to like a Junkrat Riptire, you want to be as sneaky and as flanky as possible. Another thing about using ultimates as Pharah is that you might want to so the most Pharahs like on lower SRs will just ultimate in the air. Like they will go like really high in the air and then they'll just ultimate from here. Because they're just trying to get as much vision as possible to kill as many enemies as possible. But the problem with this is that you become a really easy target in the air. Because, I mean, you've probably seen enemy Pharahs before, like, they barrage like in the middle of the air and they're stationary, they're super big target. Like, sometimes even as a Junkrat, if you're good at lobbing your grenades, you can actually kill a barraging Pharah in the air, which is really difficult. But for your level, for Jamster's level of Junkrat, I believe he should have done it maybe at least a few times. So what you want to do as a Pharah player when you use a barrage, sometimes you want to consider some cover from the buildings. Or let's say, same thing, if the enemy is here in this along this payload. If I'm barraging right in the middle of the air here, I'm a very easy target for enemy hit scan players like Hanzo, or I mean Hanzo is not hit scan, but even a Hanzo can hit me because I'm stationary in the air. So like Widowmakers, Ashe, McCree, it's very easy for them to kill me while in the air. So what I want to do is to be sneaky, and I can barrage them way nearer. So instead of going from there, maybe I can hide here. And once they are right above me, I want to just pop up and barrage. So the benefit of barraging at a lower ground compared to a super high ground in the air is that because your rockets are projectile, they take a shorter time to hit the target. So since it's a shorter time to hit the target, you actually do more damage. You get more rockets off and you do more damage to the enemy team or the enemy players when you barrage at a lower height compared to a higher height. It's pretty counterintuitive, but that's actually what I think is actually happening. So barraging at lower height actually does more damage because of the higher amount of rockets that comes out from Pharah. The other thing is that at a lower height, if you get natural cover, for example, if I'm barraging here, you notice that these two walls are actually protecting me from anyone that is coming out from spawn, anyone that's in this alley, and any enemies that is like maybe around this bend here. So if I'm barraging lower, let's say I'm here, so you can see you get cover from these buildings from hit scan players that are there, you get cover from players that are behind that building, you get covers from players on the bridge, you get cover from players which are around the bend there, and you get cover from players that are in the building. So use as much natural cover as possible to plan where you're going to use your barrages. So in general, if you're going to use barrages, try to barrage at a lower height, that means not too high, a lower height that's close enough to your enemy yet far enough that it makes it slightly difficult for them to reach you, and consider barraging in spots where you have a lot of cover from the buildings. For example, if the enemy is turning around this bend, I don't want to like go in the middle of the sky here and barrage, I'll be an easy target. What I want to do is maybe just be sneaky, come up to here, and then once they're around this bend, I just want to go and barrage right here. So I get a little bit of cover against players who are trying to hit me from this, because the building will provide some form of cover for me. I'm still exposed to any of the players here, but so you take what you can and just try to get as much cover as you can to protect yourself and be a more effective Pharah player. So that's about it. I think that's all the tech. Okay, a final one would be on how to use your jetpack. Okay, If you notice this fuel thingy, so let's say I'm hovering, you notice the fuel, it starts at 1, now it goes down to probably 0.5, and I'm going to use up my fuel. It's now in the red zone. I'm going to use it to 0. So when I'm 0, it does keep recharging, but I keep sinking lower and lower into the ground. So what does the red bar mean? The red bar technically means that if you use your left shift in the red zone and you let yourself reach to the full height of your jet boost, you should get a full recharge on your fuel. Okay, so let's see. So I'm gonna use up my fuel to the red zone, and I'm gonna use left shift. So you can see that I should get a full recharge to 1. Okay, almost. So I reached the apex of my jump, of my jet jump, and I was dropping down before it hits the 1. So I'm gonna use it up. So I'm in the red zone. So whenever in the red zone and you use a left shift, yeah, it will almost get you to a full jet pack. That means you'll reach the 1 level. So that means it's very useful when you're hovering in the air and you feel like you're running out of jetpack. Once you get in the red zone, just release a jump. For me, I usually use my right click to hover in the air as a Pharah. So here I'm actually hovering using my right click instead of my jump button. So once I'm red, I use my left shift. I release. Obviously, when I use my left shift, I release the hover button so that my fuel can recharge. So I'm going to release the hover button, let my fuel recharge while I use left shift. And so it's always a good idea to just use your fuel until the red range before you use the left shift to get a maximum recharge on your fuel again. So technically, if you manage this well, you can technically stay in the air forever. So this takes a little bit of practice, but if you manage this well, you can stay in the air without touching any touching any surface or touching any ground. Okay, in this case, because in this mode I have a lower left shift recharge, so it's a little bit more difficult. Maybe I can just change to a different game mode to show you this. Okay, maybe I just load the quick play and just go to maps thing Hanamura.
Traveling to Hanamura.
I will
Okay.
protect the innocent.
So the standard quick play, so the jetpack takes about 10 seconds to recharge, which is the left shift takes about 10 seconds. So it takes a little bit of practice to fully manage your jetpack. That means to keep yourself flying in the air. So I'm gonna do boom. Okay, so I'm gonna hover in the air. So you just have gotta tap the hover button sparingly. So I'm using my right click to hover sparingly. Hover. I'm gonna use it into the red zone and left shift. Right, which keeps me in the air. So technically, if you manage your fuel well, you could technically almost stay in the air forever. Alright, so I'm gonna left shift and I'm gonna get a full jetpack again. So just tap your right click sparingly to hover into the air. Hover, so it gets into the red zone. I'm gonna release my right click and left shift. So I climb even higher than when I started earlier. So you can keep, if you manage this well, you can actually keep going higher and higher and higher as a Pharah, and you can technically stay in the air forever. So note that all maps will have a skybox, so I don't know what's the skybox for this map. So once you hit the skybox, you can't go any higher. I think it's about, yeah, so I just hit the skybox. The skybox is here, right? I can't go any higher than this. So you want to avoid hitting the skybox, because once you hit the skybox, you actually fall down. And then since I'm on this Hanamura map, another thing to note is that you can actually, just like Junkrat, you can glide off the top of buildings. So if you're gliding off the top of a building, technically your fuel is not recharging, but you are really silent. And at the same time, your left shift is actually recharging. So you can use, so you can like just hug the building here, and then like rain damage from this angle. So I just hug the building. So I'm not really using any fuel, just rain damage. So now it's red. I just use left shift. I get back up the same range again. So I just keep hugging the top of the roof here. If I wanna just take a rest, so I just take a rest on the roof while my left shift is charging. Okay. So while you're hovering, while you're hugging the roof as well, your fuel is not being used, and you're pretty silent because you don't get footsteps, and there's no jetpack hovering sound like this whoosh sound. Your enemies can usually hear it. So there's no jetpack sound, so they don't really know that you're there. So this is another way that you can be really sneaky with your barrages. Like you can hover, and I'm gonna drop down and bomb barrage. So you can just hover in the air, just wait for enemy to come to a spot that you like them to be, then just drop down from the roof and just barrage them. So that's another way to set up sneaky barrages. Okay, so I guess that's all the tech that I have for Pharah. So hope this is helpful to you, and I hope you enjoy playing the hero.